track of the equation, m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which is equal to the rise over the run, which is also equal to delta y over delta x. Just a note, delta means change. So in mathematics, it's implied as a change. In other words, change in y over change in x. And the symbol is delta. Okay, you may have seen in some airline, right? Just for reference though. But it implies change in y over change in x. And something to be aware, the y1, y2, x2, x1, in other words, the subscripts, I've noticed that in the past they seem kind of confusing. So something to suggest is to opt them out. In other words, don't use them. Don't use the subscripts. Just remember that implies that there are two coordinates, okay? So we have some examples. Find the slope of the following coordinates, and we have three different sets of coordinates. And once again, our general slope formula, I recommend you have it at the top of your page. And it couldn't hurt to have the 1 and the 2's. But when you're using it in the actual slope calculations, omit the 1 and the 2 because it becomes confusing, especially if you have a 1 and 2 on your coordinates. Then you're wondering which 1 and which 2 did this come from. So the biggest issue often is that you don't really need to worry about which one's coordinate 1, which one's coordinate 2. And often it is taught this way, that you have to use the 1 and the 2, but that's because it's written in the book. The book does not know how to talk. But since this is a video, you're able to see it. So instead, I recommend using something like this. Notice m equals y over x minus in between both of them, y over x. And this is generally what your formula is all about. Don't worry about the 1 and the 2. All that implies is that you have two coordinates. Once again, I'm able to tell you this, so I don't have to write a 1 and a 2 to state that there's two coordinates. And notice that's why I color coded them in this case, so different colors. So let's start out. We're also going to sketch them. That way we can visually see what our graph would look like. And let's remember to label our x and y axis in our sketches. And let's start with A. On A, we have our coordinates. And once again, there is our slope. Our slope, just the fraction sign, in other words, a fraction line, with the negative on top, negative on the bottom, in the middle. That is it. You don't have to worry about which coordinate is which coordinate. Main thing is that y's go on top, x's from the same coordinate go on the bottom. Okay? But this is technically your full formula. M equals a fraction with a negative on the top, negative on the bottom, and placed in the middle of the fraction sign. So now for our coordinates, 3, 5, and 6, 1. Once again, I've color coded them to make it easier for you to see. So select one of the y values to go first. It could be the 5, it could be the 1. It's your choice. Flip a coin if you must. Okay? So it doesn't matter on the order. Just put the y value on top of the x value for that same coordinate. So let's remember that they both have an x and a y, and x is always first, y is always second. And now, I randomly chose to use the 5 as the first y value, but I could have put the 1 over 6 first, and it would still work. Okay, so I recommend you try it out and calculate it to see if you get the same, but ideally you should, okay? So, the second one, 1 over 6. So we have the y value of 1 on top of the x value of 6. Same goes for the previous coordinate. 5 value is the y, the x value is the 3. And once again, same coordinate, okay? Y value on top of the x value for the same coordinates, or same coordinate set. So in other words, let's calculate it. 5 minus 1 gives us 4. 3 minus 6 gives us negative 3. Where do I put the negative? That's the next question. Do I put a negative? Keep in mind, you always have a single negative. If you have two negatives, you must simplify it. Negative divided by negative would give you a positive, right? But in this case, we have one single negative. Now the question is, where do I put it? On the top or on the bottom? Well, recombination. 4 divided by 3, it's still going to give you 1.3333 repeated. That's the decimal. And it will be in the middle, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's on the top or on the bottom. So why not instead just put it in the middle? Okay? Negative 4 over 3 with a sign on the middle. It works, okay? And now let's try plotting the points. So there's our first point and second point. So 3, 5 and 6, 1. And now we can connect them. In other words, use a straight edge, such as your ruler, the edge of your book, the edge of your notebook, the edge of your paper, etc. Or in this case, I'm using the computer, which makes it straight as long as I connect them together. So there it is. And we can see that in this case, our slope is going down. That's because it's a negative 4 over 3. It's going down 4 squares, and to the right, you're going to go over 3 squares in order to meet the next exact corner of the squares. And I'll show you later on what I mean by this if you have a hard time seeing it right now. But we'll get to it in a few minutes. Okay, let's go for the next one. B. B is a slope formula. Once again, fraction sign, negative on top, negative in the middle, down on the center of the fraction sign. And let's now worry about our coordinates. 2, 3 and 8, 5. Once again, x is always first on each one of those. And for plotting them or putting them on our slope formula, I should say, y always goes on top. So randomly select one of those y values and put on top of the x value. It's your choice which one you want to put first, okay? Once again, flip a coin if you must. But I'm just going from left to right in this case to make it easier. So 3 over 2, the 3 is the y value, x is the 2 value, so y value on top of the x value, 3 over 2. And once again, 5 over 8, 5 is the y value, 8 is the x value on top. For the same coordinate, that's it. And now, to simplify, 3 minus 5, in this case gives us negative 2. 2 minus 8 gives us negative 6. And this is what I was talking about earlier. 2 negative signs, always simplify it to a single sign. Negative divided by a negative is going to give us a positive. And now, can we simplify 2 over 6? Well, they're both even, agreed, even numbers. So it means we can divide by 2. Or, another way to think of it is multiply by 2. 2 times what gives us 2? 2 times what gives us 6? Or think of halves. What is half of 2? And what is half of 6? It'll make your life easier if you think about it in that format. Half of 2 is 1. Half of 6 is 3. Negative divided by negative, once again, give us a positive. So there's our slope. Our slope is 1/3. And now once again for plotting. First coordinate point, 2, 3. And second coordinate point, 8, 5. There we go. And now we can connect them. And now we can see from left to right, it's going up. And that's because our slope is positive. We have a positive 1/3. It's a positive increasing line. In other words, going up from left to right. And it's going up 1 square over 3 squares. Going for the last one there, C. Once again, we have our coordinates, 3, 4, and our slope down at the bottom, our next coordinate, 7, 2. So slope formula, substituting in on top of our slope formula, 4 over 3, y on top of the x, and 2 over 7, y on top of the x. And simplifying, 4 minus 2 gives us 2. 3 minus 7 gives us negative 4. Both are even numbers, so that means we can simplify this, right? We can divide by 2 again. And of course, we get positive and negative gives us a negative. 2 divided by 2, or half of 2, is 1. Half of 4 is 2. And therefore, that gives us our slope, minus 1/2. So that means from left to right, this line will be going downhill again. In other words, decreasing. So let's see, there's our first dot at 4, 3. Or actually, yep. And let's see. Seven, 2 then will be our next one. Pardon me, I said it backwards. 3, 4 and 7, 2. Okay, so there's our line. Once again, since it's a negative slope, it's going downhill. So in other words, going down from left to right. Okay, so in other words, we want to visualize this a little better, right? So let's make some slopes. So there are our slopes. That way you can see them on our graph or sketch. So 4 over 3, and then 1 up, 3 over, and then 1 down and 2 over. Since it's pretty difficult to see what's going on in that little sketch. I'm going to try to make those slopes a little bit bigger so that way you can visualize them. So the first slope is the blue line up at the top. Notice it's going downhill, so it's going down four blocks from where that dot is, and over three squares, right? So down 4 squares over 3 squares. So always the y over the x first. 4 down over 3. Okay, let's try for the next one. The next one, B, is where we got the slope of up 1 over 3. So we're going up 1 square and over 1, 2, 3 squares. And of course the last one is where it's going downhill again, in other words negative. You have a negative slope. And it's going down 1 over 2. Once again, down 1 square and over 1 and 2 squares. Hopefully that made it easier to visualize.